said that you wonder what would happen if Instagram, if social wasn't here a year from now. And yet this idea of community and connection and how that cuts through the noise. I told you how I'm Polish, my kids speak Polish, and they feel part of that community. You have a history, right, outside of the US as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there's something about connection, simplification. Am I hearing it properly? What am I missing?
No, you're not missing it. I love this concept of diaspora philanthropy, this beautiful thing of immigrants coming to this country to gain a certain amount of wealth, to take it back home, to take care of their home. I love that kind of loyalty, that privilege of being the one that got out and having a connection, a deep-rooted connection, enough that you fund a school or whatever there is that provide medical care, legal care. That is that grassroots. And that's something intrinsic, I think, into who we are as human beings. It seems old school, but it goes back to giving circles and it goes back to tribalism. Our tribes are our communities. And there is something that is just missing in this sector right now, the deep connection, because we all have to look at each other as though every person matters. It doesn't matter if you're that mega donor or you're a grassroots donor. Everyone's important. Everyone has a story behind the dollar that they give, in the way that they give, why they give, and where they want to give. And it's all important. It's a part of an ecosystem. It has to be circular. It has to be an ecosystem where everyone is involved, from the funder to the recipient. And if you look at that ongoing conversation, we can have a clear path forward. And it's not hierarchical, it's community. It's really deep community.
My guest this week is Crashonda Andrew, Senior Vice President of Global Philanthropy at United Way Worldwide. For over a century, United Way has been one of the most trusted names in global giving, mobilizing communities, funding local solutions, and driving measurable impact across health, education, and financial stability. But the giving landscape is shifting fast. The traditional donor pyramid is collapsing, and with it, the old rules of philanthropy. Crashonda is at the forefront of that transformation, reimagining how we engage donors, especially younger generations who care more about causes than institutions. Crashonda, welcome to Giving Growth.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Your journey towards fundraising, in my opinion, is a bit unusual. How did you start with this sector?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I was a fundraiser before I knew it was a profession. So I grew up Baptist, and my grandfather had a soup kitchen in Greensboro, North Carolina. And he used to feed the locals and fundraise to make sure that his community was fed. And I watched him over years caregive over his community. It kind of stuck with me. And I knew I had a heart of service based on his relationships with the community. And then I started getting to acting. And I had a career in theater for a very long time and took a pivot. My day job, I worked at senior centers in New York City. And I started to notice that a lot of the services and the access that they needed was dependent upon funding. And a light bulb went off. I knew I either wanted to be the person that made sure that the funding was there, or I wanted to be the person that made sure that impact was happening for those seniors. And so from there, I started fundraising for the local senior centers. And then it evolved into a career. And I spent some time with Feeding America, with the NAACP, and now United Way Worldwide.
So you were a volunteer?
No, it was my day job. So I was an actor, but to pay the bills, I worked at senior centers. And so I wasn't a volunteer. I started teaching yoga, chair yoga, theater, anything that I could find that could help me pay my rent. And then it became a love affair with the senior centers and the community, and they became my friends and my family. And then from there, I knew that they needed access, they needed services, and those services were at jeopardy due to funding. And so I made sure that those services and that they also had access in any way that I could, finding some type of revenue sources. And it evolved into a career. And here I am.
It always surprises me how in life, and this has nothing to do with this podcast and the topic of today, but we do these things in life, let's say to pay bills. And the serendipity has a role in our growth, in our journey. Maybe we start in a role or in a position for one reason, and then 10, 15 years later, it becomes what we are all about. And I love how being willing to lean into these things and sort of letting us that current carry us can lead to some really wonderful places. So I don't know what you're hearing, but
No, that's right.
I think that's
right.
what happened to you, and I think
No,
it's
without a
wonderful.
doubt. And I bought it my grandfather, Willie Johnson, because those seniors represented him to me. And there was this profound respect, and I felt honor and dignity, even as a struggling artist, doing that work because I felt like he would be proud. It reminded me of the soup kitchen, of feeding my community through the arts. And it just evolved. I felt a deeper connection to him. Once he passed away, I felt like I was holding up or living through his legacy and supporting the elders in my community.
Well, on the way here, we talked about Hurricane Helene and how United Way played a role in supporting those communities. And
that was my community. I'm from North Carolina. And United Way showed up we were there before the disaster. We were there during the disaster and after the disaster. And that's the power of United Way. It is a collective community united during disasters, but also for supporting those that need it the most post-disaster. And that's the power of the network.
I wonder how your grandfather would feel. Tell me his name again.
Willie E. Johnson.
How would he feel if he heard you share this story?
He used to tell me when I was younger, I'm not proud of you. I love you. There's no pride in that. I know it all the time. And so that, I know. So I think he knew at 10 years old that I had the capabilities. I think the beauty of elders for me is that they have the model behavior to teach us, but also to show us through their lived experience. So I always reference him because I remember the way that he served in these quiet and still moments, from someone knocking at the door and asking for something to eat, or he had a beautiful piano in the entrance, and my grandmother would play piano with whoever would come in. And I just remember those still moments of just hospitality. And that really has informed me and influenced me as a fundraiser.
What we've been experiencing for many years now seems to me a bit systemic. When I look at data in the industry, fourth year where the count of donors seems to be declining. In general, in the industry, giving is soft, but it's what seems to be happening is that we're getting more revenue from a shrinking base of donors. What are some shifts in society that are changing giving? What is your perspective on what's happening almost at the macroeconomic level with donors, whether they're mass, mid, or major, that's contributing to this base of donors shrinking?
I think the first thing that I'm noticing is that I think we're all noticing is that the behavior is changing. You know, people are no longer just concerned about passive giving. They want to be involved. They want to feel connected, but they also want to know where their money is going. So there's a level of transparency, not just in the culture, but within the organization. People are they're really concerned about what the organization looks like for them. And the second, this is a big one, I think the rise in mega donors. You think of folks like Mackenzie Scott. I think those are great. We need those, but there is a huge shift in the value that we're placing on those mega donors that we're not really paying attention to mid and then even mass donors. And I think that shift is reflective of what's important to us. And I think in order for us to evolve, we have to look at every individual, no matter if they give $25 to $25 million, as important and as a partner for the organization.
Do you think that there are more mega donors because the disparity between the rich and not so fortunate is becoming, so there's just simply there are more mega donors because there are more people at the top of the pyramid, literally, who have immense amounts of wealth, and that becomes so attractive to charities to go after that it's very easy to forget about people who give $20 a month.
Without a doubt. I think it's so easy, but you also think of the competition then, right? If you say there's a mass amount of charities that are focusing on the wealth of it's a lot, but it's a few in comparison to mass donors, then who's paying attention to those mass donors? And also the moves management. You look at the potential of folks, right? So if you meet someone at $25, who knows what could happen in 10 years? They could be a CEO of a company and be a part of that giving pledge and decide they're going to give large amounts of their wealth away. But if they didn't have a relationship with you throughout the journey, what makes you think that you would be their charity of choice? So I do think, mass donors, we applaud the generosity, the heart posture, but I also think we have to look at equity, right? If we're thinking about partnership, true partnership is beyond the dollar, it's beyond the transaction. It's really involved in the relationship. And so we can look at going after mass mega donors and then realize we don't have a relationship with them. So what makes us stand out? But the donors that we didn't pay attention to, who had been giving to us for years, who might have an opportunity to gain, unsurmountable amounts of wealth. Are we focusing on them? Are we in partnership? Are we in community with them? And the circle of life is so small. People are connected in ways that you never know. So those mass donors could be connected to Mackenzie Scott, or she could be focused on them. And there's been a lot of mega donors who have also presented challenges to charities. I will give you this, but you also have to raise money and focus on the folks that are your true partners as well.
Well, I imagine if I'm a mega donor, I also have specific needs, and charities are looking for unrestricted giving.
That's right.
This all looks complicated and paradoxical because when you think about the classic giving pyramid, we're supposed to care about those that are just participating and they don't give, but they support through their actions. And then someone else gives $10 per month, someone else $5,000 per year, and someone else $1 million per year. And we're supposed to care about all of them. And when I hear this, I do think it's confusing for a charity to really know, what am I supposed to do with limited staffing, with limited resources? I actually have lots of empathy for this pull towards mega donors. Like I get that. And yet the bottom of the pyramid is eroding. When you think about donors who are giving $10, $20 a month, what is happening with them? What's happening with their engagement? What's happening with their sense of connection to a charity's mission?
So I think there's two things. There's also a shift in technology, right? So the way that we reach people has evolved. So there's folks that have maybe giving that $20 to $25. It depends on what generation they are at, right? So we have multi-channel approaches. If folks have been giving, via check for years, we still have to keep that direct mail engine going. What I'm noticing is in the sector that people are shifting their strategy and looking at those channels as maybe outdated. There's a movement more towards digital and giving people more opportunities to give in the digital world. But if we don't look at that steady $20 that someone wrote that check for the past 20 years and keep that channel open, they're either not going to give anywhere or they're going to find an organization that meets them where they are. So I think that's also an approach that we can't have a one-size-fits-all model. Just because technology is evolving, it's great, right? So we're giving people other options to give. You look at peer-to-peer fundraising. You look at, community-based fundraising. You look at local galvanizing of fundraising. But then you also need to focus on what were those channels that give you consistent sustainers that have been involved with your organization for years, and actually have a conversation with them if there's a preference on the way that they want to give. I do think they're dying out because of the shift in technology, but I also think there's an opportunity to have not just a multi-channel approach, but a multi-channel conversation. We have to talk back to donors if they haven't given or they lapsed. Start that conversation with them and meet them where they are.
How's United Way worldwide right now? So what conversations are you guys having internally to ensure that you stay relevant?
We're taking a hard look at how we re-engage with people. The middle tier is shrinking, but I think that is also an opportunity for us to create more areas of community and more areas of conversation. I think we're also looking at creating a more co-partner approach. We're leading with community first. So we're going to the heart and the center of the work. And then we're galvanizing folks from there as opposed from a top level approach. We're also looking at grassroots fundraising, those community activists that have really been able to create a following. We're using their approach. We're using them as thought partners in this work so that they can do peer-to-peer fundraising in support of the cause. It's no longer us leading the work and the charge. We're now thinking, how can we galvanize those that we support, but also those that are directly affected by impact can now be ambassadors for the organization.
Something you told me went like this, that we need to simplify chaos that is outside. And I'm also hearing you refer back to community again and again.
Mm-hmm.
How is the idea of simplifying chaos that is outside linked with community, if at all?
What's directly linked with community? Because the community are the ones that are experiencing the chaos, and we are a part of community. I think you think about, for me, it's flipping the idea of loyalty on its head, right? We look at sustainers. We think those are our most loyal givers. But if we really think about it, the ones that are on the ground, that are directly impacted, that is who we should be most loyal to. And so United Way, we're figuring out that we ourselves as fundraisers have to be in community and allow our givers to be a part of it. So donors are now thinking we can also fundraise on behalf of the organization, but we don't have to be influenced by the chaos of confusion. We can go directly to the source. And that's why the local United Ways and the network are so instrumental into the growth of philanthropy, because we now get data directly from the source. We don't have to wait for impact. We see impact up front and center. And now we're inviting our donors to the table and having conversations of co-partnering on the grants, on fundraising, on any other opportunities that we can find to support communities.
This feels very old school. This feels like, and you said it to me back in April, you said that you wonder what would happen if Instagram, if social wasn't here a year from now, or will be here a year from now. The reality of what we experience online tomorrow in several years may be quite different. And yet this idea of community and connection and how that cuts through the noise. And I also think we yearn from it. I told you how, I'm Polish, my kids speak Polish, and they feel part of that community. You have a history, right, outside of the US as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there's something about connection and just simplification and really being on the ground that I'm hearing you talk about. Am I hearing it properly? What am I missing?
No, you're not missing it. I love this concept of diaspora philanthropy, this beautiful thing of immigrants coming to this country to gain a certain amount of wealth, to take it back home, to take care of their home. I love that kind of loyalty, that honor, that privilege of being the one that got out and having a connection, a deep-rooted connection, enough that you fund a school, or you support the local food bank, or whatever there is that need provide medical care, legal care. That is that grassroots, and that's something intrinsic, I think, into who we are as human beings. It seems old school, but it goes back to giving circles and it goes back to tribalism, right? Our tribes are our communities. And there is something that is just missing in this sector right now, the deep connection, because we all have to look at each other as though every person matters. It doesn't matter if you're that mega donor or you're a grassroots donor. Everyone's important. Everyone has a story behind the dollar that they give, in the way that they give, why they give, and where they want to give. And it's all important. It's a part of an ecosystem. Often think of if we blew up this pyramid, which I don't think works, it has to be circular. It has to be an ecosystem where everyone is involved, from the funder to the recipient. And if you look at that ongoing conversation, we can have a clear path forward. And it's not hierarchical, it's community. It's really deep community.
When we spoke about this over breakfast, you used the word diaspora on a number of occasions. And I, at first, found it confusing because I associate that word with, I belong to a specific ethnic group, right? I came from a specific country and I identify as being a member of that community. But I love how you said it's tribal, because that to me opens this idea up. Maybe tribal for me is I used to do CrossFit, right? And that was my tribe for a while, in a way. And I really identified with that. Right now, I love mountain biking. I am absolutely obsessed about mountain biking. And it has to have everything to do with the fact that I moved to Colorado
Right.
X years ago. And I think we all have these things that we feel that we belong to. And I think the industry calls it affinity, but it's affinity to the mission, to the pillar of my mission. But there's also affinity to the thing that's in my heart. Like that could be CrossFit, that could be mountain biking. Maybe there's a way to use that tribalism as a way to connect me to a mission. Is that what you're talking about? Do you see the industry do this? Are we leaning to this idea of deeper community to raise money? What are you hearing?
Yes and no. I think that we know we need community to move forward and be successful. I do think that the industry is very siloed. There's LGBTQ plus this, there's Black this, their orgs are compartmentalized based on these interests, as opposed to we all are doing the work for thriving communities. The thing that is interesting that you said about diaspora and the confusion is that it's amazing that you know where you're from and have origins. That is not the experience of Black Americans. And so there is this idea that diaspora philanthropy is intrinsic to who we are, because this is not our homeland. And as more of us start to uncover where we're from, where we're really from, I know my family is from, South Carolina, we're Gullah Geechee, and I've traced my roots there. And there is a deep connection to the South. I went to Savannah College of Art and Design in Savannah, Georgia, to feel a deeper connection to my home and to my family. But before that, where were we? You're from Poland. I'm pretty sure you can trace back your grandfather, your great-great-grandfather, and your children have a deep connection to their ancestors.
Correct.
Because they're Polish. That concept is so deep that folks are now giving where they start to uncover their roots. Like, you feel connected to Poland. And if there's something you could do with your wealth, you would do that to support where you're from. The concept diaspora philanthropy is immigrants, but it's also for those who are uncovering that they are immigrants too. So that's my perspective.
Well, we're all, and you said it over breakfast, we're all immigrants.
We're all immigrants.
From somewhere, right? We're all from
Correct.
somewhere. And I like how you're expanding this definition.
Right. And I think the way that I'm seeing in the sector is this global aspect. We're now seeing the interconnectivity of philanthropy more than ever before. The U.S. is a leader in a lot of things, but when it comes to direct impact, maybe programs, we're learning a lot from the continent of Africa. We're learning a lot from the Caribbean. We're learning a lot from Canada. I think there's such a beauty in us all being in conversation about how do we help people together in harmony? How do we thrive together? And how do we start to fix some of these issues that we have the power to do in our generation? We have the power to do it now. And that's the concept of diaspora philanthropy, is this kind of back home mindset of this loyalty. It's interconnected, generationally, globally. There are British, the citizens that are Nigerian, Caribbean.
Yeah, and it's also complicated, right?
It's complicated.
These tribes they're not monochromatic.
That's right.
It's
That's
there are
right.
many shades, there are many angles.
That's right. They're not monolithic. They don't think the same. We don't talk the same. We have to be in conversation to understand that and be in relationship, which is so important.
So I want to make this real.
Mm-hmm.
Two thoughts, and tell me what you're hearing. And we didn't rehearse this, right? So this is on the fly.
Okay. All right.
But the key idea is diaspora philanthropy.
Mm-hmm.
In the industry, we talk about affinity. But I think it starts first with, I belong to this, let's call it tribe. A charity has a certain mission that I have an affinity towards. But if I view that affinity through the lens of my tribe, the shading changes. The messaging changes, right? My emotional connection with that mission changes because it's through the lens of my lived experience. And then there is impact. Actually seeing that the time I put together to go to do a march, or $20 I gave per month, or whatever the amount, there is actually something about a dopamine hit that I'm also, I'm meeting that need. So I look at it as a triangle, and I wonder if this makes sense to you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm part of this tribe. That's one side of the triangle. I feel connected to this charity because of their mission, because of how I viewed their mission through my lens. But I also need to see impact that my work is doing. Is this all diaspora philanthropy to you? What are you hearing? What am I missing?
That's good. That is it. That's it. I feel connected. I believe in the mission. I see the impact. And then it's all connected in some way. But someone has to be in conversation with me about it.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
That's actually a great segue. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You're making my life easier. To another quote that I wrote down that you shared with me. This is your original thinking. You said, younger people want to answer why differently. Because I think that hits at, yeah, this is great, but how do I actually know what's in your head as a fundraiser? So what is your take on the why that young people want to answer differently?
Young people want transparency. They want to answer the hard questions, which is a different why. I remember growing up, my mom would say, do this because I said so. That no longer exists. Young people really want to know why. Why you? Why can't I do it myself? Why can't I give it to my friend? Why can't I show up and do the work myself and fundraise? It also leans towards competition for nonprofits, because now you're no longer competing against other charities. You're competing against individuals. And that why for young people, if you can't answer that, they're going to do it on their own. They also are less likely to feel seen and heard. And if you don't have the answers as a charity, say that. I don't have the answers, but with your help, we can find the answers. We can excavate together, answer the hard questions. That's a different generational conversation. I think it's a tough conversation, but it's needed to move this sector forward. Young people are also really, really hesitant to be loyal to something that's ever changing. They're looking for consistency. You're going to be transparent about the things, be consistent about transparency. And I'm seeing that more than ever, is if we decide to evolve, the evolution is continuous. We can't just give it up with DEI. We have to continue to evolve and meet the times. And people have to be able to feel that they are seen and heard, but we're inclusive, right? Inclusive in mind, inclusive in heart. That's very important. That's something I'm noticing, that a lot of young people are really, really challenging the charity concept more than ever before.
Talk to me about the concept of giving societies. This is something that you shared with me earlier, and the role of ambassadors in those giving societies. Can giving societies, which to me feels like a tribal, community-like mechanism, and having someone who is that maybe ambassador in the context of that giving society, can that help answer that why that young people are looking for?
Without a doubt, you look at influencers. That's essentially what they are. They're ambassadors. There are now organizations getting influencers as their ambassadors for the organizations.
I have to say, I didn't actually think about that way. That's actually, okay, yes.
So
Continue.
Right. So the influencers are global, right? Their perspectives are global and they're reaching large audiences, but they have followers. And they also are decision makers for a lot of work. I think of when disaster hits, we have pivoted and looked at, what influencers are saying on any social media platform about if it is their local disaster in New York or in North Carolina was one of those. A lot of influencers galvanized to fundraise. And that is so important when you think of tribal, right? This followers is tribal. People are connected to the mission, whatever the mission might be. They're connected to the heart, the issue, whatever the case that the influencer has lifted up. And then they're also looking back at it of, okay, I'm making an investment because now they have paid advertisement. They're also doing exclusive videos where people pay to follow them. There's something about that in the marketing perspective that charities can kind of use. We can use that. And it's helping us also understand the mind and the heart of this next generation of givers.
If I'm a charity, so we spoke about the triangle, right? What I care about, what tribe I'm connected to, because of just my, again, unique experience. But the assumption is there are many people like me sort of out there, maybe in Washington, maybe in New York, maybe in Denver. Unlike with influencers, that to me smells and feels like something that's in person. Tell me if that's true. Okay.
It could be virtual.
Can it be virtual?
Yes. Oh, it is virtual. I mean, it is in person, but there's layers to this influence, right? You think about, we have the digital aspect. They're doing, in-person meetups of some sort. But there's also layers of influence where they don't even have to be there. They can have a call to action and people go country by country and they're not even present. That is a level of influence like no other. I look at, Mr. Beast, for example.
Sure.
He has a whole show that it's tribal, right? It is this altruistic society that you can give and there is no connection at all, just to help people, to help them. It's creating a whole mind shift, but now it's a television show based on altruism. I think that is not just in person, it permeates society in a really deeper way.
That makes sense. I mean, I like the Drive to Survive show on Netflix, F1. I have never been in my life to an F1 race. Never. And that's actually a category. I read about this. That
you should.
I should, but I don't need to. And I think that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, because you can watch the show.
I still feel like I'm a fan of F1. I didn't used to be. I never thought about F1. Now I do. I watch it actually with my daughters, which is super cool. But to your point, I am part of that F1 virtual Drive to Survive tribe, right? And if there was a way for a brand, for-profit or non-profit, and Netflix knows this about me, they're probably reselling this data to someone right now.
That's right.
And I think that's what you're talking about. What stands in the way of charities embracing this philosophy and actually doing something with this?
It goes back to, on the drive here, we talked about being relevant versus irrelevant, right? I think charities are not concerned about being irrelevant. They've been around so long that there is this model that's so ingrained in the culture of charities that to shift the model is going to take a Herculean mindset. It's going to take a whole new, and I hate to say this, but what's happening currently in government, I think this might be the thing that shifts people, the ground from up under us, to make us realize that we could be irrelevant. 10 years from now, we could be irrelevant. I think that shift of mindset of a catastrophic event in history, I think it's going to evolve this sector in a way of being focused on relevancy and what are people saying about us? Who's tuning in? Who's really tuning in and now a part of our tribe? And this shift in wealth, right? We're looking at the generation, this massive passive wealth to a whole new generation. If you're not relevant to them, if you didn't really look at, we talked about legacy, right? We look at sort of planned gifts and legacy donors living and breathing with one person. We have to also break that model up. Legacy is your children's children's children. Are they Formula One fans, right? Are they attached to the charity, your charity of choice? Are you passing on philanthropy to them and teaching them about your mission, your vision, and your connection that's rooted to the organization of your choice or organizations? Because people are now supporting multiple organizations at the same time in a way that they've never done before. I think that's the shift. It's what's happening in society, the chaos.
Yeah.
I look at it as a blessing. It is an opportunity.
It sounds like we have an opportunity to embrace a crisis and not let it be wasted.
That's right.
There's this great phrase, breakdowns lead to breakthroughs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what you're saying. Let's imagine for a second. I'm really curious about your answer. You are the leader of a large, well-established charity. I mean, you are in a very senior, literally a senior leadership role in your title. And you can do whatever you want. What would you do in the next several months to start to test these ideas in market to see what really takes root? What are some things that you would love to do to test it in the market, actually?
2 things. I listened to you earlier and talk about a situation you had with a charity. And
not to be named.
Not to be named.
Thank you.
Not to be named. But an opportunity that they missed just by not listening. So the first thing I would do in a leadership position is do a listening tour of our partners or potential partners and listen. What are their needs, their wants, their desires? Where are the opportunity areas that they see, not what I see? And look at perspective. That's the first thing I would do. And then technology. I would allow as many opportunities as I can to be relevant through marketing, but also relevant to people giving. How can I show up in various spaces that no one thinks about or that they use all the time? How can I show up through business cards, through your local grocer? How can I show up and meet people where they are and give them an opportunity to be in relationship, but also to give if they want it to? There are some interesting places that I assumed charity was in my position and realized we're not there, right? We think of mobile pay. We think of our digital platforms, but we're also not in the most interesting places. We're not in our schools in a way that we should be. We're not in the local community in a way that we should be. My husband and I go on these walks, and as we're walking, I remember when I was younger seeing advertisements for local charities. I remember seeing the Red Cross. That I don't see it anymore. So that's one way. I would show up where people are and be present. And then the third thing I would do, and this might be controversial, but I think it's an opportunity that we're not taking by having young people at the table. We think of experience based on age. I think experience based on life, right? There are some young people who have experienced a lot more in their 18 years than folks have at 50. So I would invite a lot of younger people to the table to make decisions. And I'm talking about fresh out of high school, fresh out of college, really smart. Get them while they're hungry. They have a desire to change things and invite them to leadership positions. Those are my 3 things.
So listen more.
I would do a listening tour.
Show up where they are at, school, maybe place of work.
Place of
Honestly,
work.
in my company, if someone said, do you want to have some sort of artifact, right, poster in the kitchen area, I don't think I would say no. But no one talks to us about that. So show up,
That's right.
give younger people a seat at the table, which to me also kind of connects with listening, just kind of being plugged into what they care about.
That's right.
Now, my whole life experience, professional life experience, is in direct marketing. And direct marketing is about data. Something else we spoke about previously was CRM systems. The holy grail for me as a direct marketer of 25 years by now would be to capture these conversations, these tribal affiliations that people have in a CRM system. And then I can invite you to a dinner, right? This group of people, maybe it's a subgroup. We can do a walk together. I know where everybody works or what school they go to your point. I can create a WhatsApp group because you spoke about omni-channel too.
Yeah.
I can be everywhere where they want to be with this idea of the tribe I belong to, tracked as a metric in a CRM. And I don't mean to geek out, but that would be super cool.
That's right. It was so cool.
What are you hearing? What are your thoughts about this?
One, we're going through it of breaking.
Right now?
Oh my goodness, breaking the
Tell
CRM.
me more.
So I've been
Not about the breaking.
well,
but
and it's essentially customizing. So there's a lot of customization that I'm asking for that doesn't exist for the CRM. One of those is tracking interest beyond notes, right? So I really want to get granular. I want to really talk about, what's their favorite food? I know you like bacon, right? So
when
if I
I
had
travel,
to go
I told you,
when you travel,
not at home,
you like 2 plates of bacon.
I spoil myself with bacon. It's true. It's now on. It's
So
out
I
there.
would put he
Everybody
likes
knows now.
bacon.
Thank you.
Food choice, bacon. But if we get to that point of interest, you love to bike, you have 3 daughters, your wife is your friend, you send her text messages in the middle of the day about things you eat.
I do.
So I know that now as a fundraiser, if I ask you a question about your giving pattern or what you're interested in, I know you're going to go ask your wife. Or you're also going to bring in your daughters and maybe have a conversation about it. Those type of details transform fundraising because it's a relationship, right? I get to know you, you get to know me a little bit, but that relationship does not live and breathe with me. It will then live and breathe with the organization. So the next relationship manager can say, oh, I know so much about Greg.
Continuity, yeah.
Yes, it's continuity. I'm interested in him. And then they can also find deeper lines of connectivity. And so they know that their approach shouldn't be about, saving pigs because you like pork. You know what it... But there's
I got it.
Right.
I got the connection. I know where you're going.
But I wouldn't, you
Bacon,
wouldn't be a
pigs.
great candidate for
Yeah.
PETA, but, there's...
True.
But you know what I mean? That level of detail,
Yeah.
I think it also hurts the fundraiser when we don't have that level of detail. Because then we go into conversation with you and you're just like, well, how do you not know that? I've been given to you for years. Not the bacon, but your giving history, your children, you bike, you've done a fundraiser and before multiple fundraisers. You're actually savvy as a donor, a lot more than a lot of people. And that's when I say those levers in our CRM, I think if we evolve that, it really talks about partnership. And co-ownership is important to me. A lot of my donors I look as co-owners, right? I'm hired to do a role, but they're also a part of me being in the role that I'm in. So their gift also helps with general operating dollars, which helps me have the position that I am in. So there's a level of respect. There's a level of integrity that comes with the more I know about you. And there's a level of interest, keen interest, that's not based on the transaction.
Something I have gotten much better at lately, and it also has to do with my role growing up, is listening. I used to, especially in my 30s, way too much coffee, right? Like working a lot and more impatient than I am now. And I would cut people off. And I think that was disrespectful in retrospect. I didn't mean to be disrespectful. I just think it comes across as disrespectful or just not a great listener. And I think we all like when someone listens to us because it shows that someone gives a damn
That's right.
about us.
That's right.
I think that's what you're talking about. And I agree with you based on my personal experiences that more listening is needed, more peeling of the onion kind of listening, the layer behind the layer. I also think it's hard for anyone, for me, for us, for a for-profit brand, non-profit brand to listen well. I just think it's hard in general. So that's just an observation, but I love your CRM example and the changes you're doing right now. Can you share any challenges in changing how what we listen to is tracked?
Challenges
Or
are
opportunities, or just your
okay.
experience
I
on
would
the journey.
I would say that the donor journey, that's an opportunity, right? The opportunity based on the CRM that I want to change and the donor journey traditionally, they're different, right? It's the change of the mindset. The donor journey can't just be those 4 or 5 steps. Take the steps off the table, okay? You know the steps. We're in conversation, we're in relationship. Now let's get real and let's really talk about what your interests are, what are your passions, what do you feel connected to, but also what do you want to do in partnership? That's the part of the listening. And I don't think it's hard. I think it's too simple. And I think people are thinking about it too much. I think that there is this plan of action, metrics attached, and, this is what we want to come out of. And these are our goals and our outcomes that are helpful, but they get in the way sometimes of listening because you're also so focused on the end game. The simplification, and that goes back to simplifying the chaos in our head, around us. We really get down to tribal, right? There is a hierarchy in tribal, right? You have the head of the tribe, you have the women have a place and the children and all of that. But if you think of how simple that could be, if we just understand everything has a place, everyone has a place, everyone is important in that element, everyone deserves equity, respect, integrity. Doesn't matter what their role is, that level of listening, right? So the donor plays a part in that, and it isn't very important. And it's not just a transaction. Their part is not money. It's not ROI. It is more about and that's also another opportunity is to challenge the ROI. What if there isn't a return that week in this lifetime? What if there's a return in the next lifetime or their child's or their grandchild's? That level of investment requires that level of listening, I think. And I challenge the sector to think about less about the immediate and more about longevity. We are concerned about sustainability, but are we really? Because is it sustainable to just look at Greg? I think it's more sustainable for me to look at your 10-year-old or to talk about your 10-year-old.
Yeah, sure, she's 10.
I think that's more sustainable.
Well, and this was your point from our earlier conversations about is my tribe. I'm part of a tribe. My family and other families like mine are probably part of a tribe. So there's, and this could be a separate podcast, but I love your redefinition of legacy. It's not just my legacy, but my family's legacy, a multi-generational legacy. I don't hear people talk about this.
I think it's so important. And you're passing, I'm pretty sure you have wealth advisors that are talking to you about
trusts, wills.
You're all the things.
Sure.
Right? And you're very conscious about that. I think you are
because
also,
I care about legacy, right? I care
correct.
About sure.
Correct. And multi-generational legacy.
Absolutely.
You've brought up your daughters multiple times in our conversation. So that's when I say shifting the CRM. In the CRM, it shouldn't be Greg as the donor. It should be Greg plus his wife, plus his 3 daughters, and his bike, and his bacon.
The bike is important, by the way.
I can tell.
So I want to start to bring it home. Here's what I'm hearing as a framework, and it makes sense to me, just being also in this industry. We spoke about the triangle. We spoke about the fact that I belong as one end of the triangle to some community, or maybe it's a giving society, or maybe it's a tribe, but it's something that connects me to others.
That's
It's
right.
some sort of lived experience, and
Mm-hmm.
it can take many shapes and colors and forms.
Mm-hmm.
It's complicated, but it exists. Then there is the charity that I have an affinity towards, to one of its pillar, one of its missions, but that connection happens through the lens of that community. And then there's impact. And if I can figure this out, and there are probably many of these triangles for every charity, that starts to create these blobs, these groups of people that I can communicate with different ways. But it's hard to do that, to execute on that philosophy, if I don't have a way of tracking that I'm part of this tribe,
That's right.
and this is what I care about, and here's how I'm connected. And there is something also about communication with me. So, and it all smells and feels like diaspora philanthropy to me.
That's right.
We both just made this up. I am simply inspired by what you said. I like frameworks. I tried to get a job at McKinsey years ago, got to the last round, didn't get the job, probably for the better, but I like frameworks.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the framework that I'm viewing what you shared through. What would you change? Does this make sense? Anything else that you think is important about this framework?
I love that. No, that's spot on. Tribe, charity, impact. Simplicity. How simple that framework is. We can get in all the mechanics and the technology and the how and all the things. But I think simplifying it, that is diaspora philanthropy. But that's philanthropy at its core. I think the core of philanthropy. And I look at your story, I think about your story. I remember you saying you remember when you were younger, seeing the trucks, seeing the charities in your community. When you came to the US, you still remembered them. They were locked in a memory.
Yes.
I think that there's so many people who have that story. That's the idea of giving societies for me, right? It's not based on the amount. I think it's based on the lived experience and the connection. And then you then become, there's peer-to-peer. You have your donor salon, you host, you share with your network, you connect in other ways than that the charity can't. Now it lives and breathes with you, as opposed to the organization.
2 more questions.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine that you are going to a boardroom with your trustees or major donors or the board, and you are sharing this framework, and it's diaspora philanthropy. What do you imagine they would latch on to be excited, to lean into testing this in market?
I think they would be most excited about sharing their story. There's an assumption that the board knows each other, like really knows each other. They don't. They know their titles, they know their roles. But I think that deep connection is transformative. I think it'll transform our board's fundraising capacity. I think it'll challenge their ability to light a fire in their network. But I think they'll be excited about sharing who they really are beyond the boardroom.
I lied. I have another question for you. So 2 more questions. First one is, and I wrote it down because I wanted to make sure I don't mess this up. What is it that you know about young philanthropists or this idea of giving societies today that you wish you knew at the start of your career? What do you know today that you wish you knew earlier? And because that probably will have changed how you've been going about your role or being in this industry.
The thing that I wish I knew is that they're just like me. I wish I knew how approachable, how connected they are to issues, how much they cared. There's an assumption that I have to teach them about philanthropy. And that I know now is how savvy, how smart, how intuitive, how connected they are to the causes and beliefs that they care about, that they now can teach us something. And so I am now challenged with looking at them as partners and colleagues in this work, that if I knew that before, I would have so many more friends, so many more partners in this work. But once I figure that out, that, oh, this person's net worth does not dictate who they are as a person, that I could go up to them. I could go up to a Greg or an Anton, and we can craft and have in a relationship beyond title, money, religion. That's something I didn't know before. I was so intimidated by young philanthropists. But now I'm just like, okay, they're figuring this out themselves, and we can figure it out together and have enormous impact and partnership. And you know, the beautiful thing about my career, that has been my calling card, are those relationships. Once I figured that out, I was like, oh, they're my friend, and you're interested in having a conversation. They're really a cool guy. They would love to know what we're doing. And that, I think, was transformative, because I realized how many other people didn't get that. So that's something I would have taught myself before, is people are approachable. They're people, connect, have relationships beyond the transaction with young people.
With young people.
With young
Very
people.
well. I told you I just turned 50. I feel
With you, you're still
excluded.
young. You're still young.
Final question. So I think this idea of fire in the belly, I talk about this at work a lot. And I think that's important because I always tell my team, my job is to unpack your possibilities. That's what I'm here for at my level. If they win, I win, everybody wins, right? They win, I win, our clients win. We're all winning. Really.
Right.
And it sounds a little...
No, it's the truth.
It's the truth.
It's the truth.
The first step is for me to understand what's most important to them, aka fire in the belly. What are they determined to get to? Because I cannot take them up on a journey up
That's
a
right.
mountain.
That's right.
If I don't know which mountain they want to climb. I'm the guide, and they're the active participants in this journey. But I need to know, like, where are we pointing the compass? Where's the compass pointing for you right now? Like, what's your fire in the belly? In professional sense.
Professional sense, diaspora philanthropy. It's such a fire for me.
I didn't mean for this to be a leading question, by the way.
No, it is. I'm really passionate about the story of people who are not from here, immigrants, and how it's just an untapped group. But also their resources are untapped in the amount of wealth that people are able to attain coming to America. That's a whole case study in itself. Greg, the amount of wealth, I think that's just not talked about enough. There's this idea of the American dream, but there's an immigrant dream. That is so much more powerful and interesting to me. There's a reason why my team is very diverse. And to your point, my work feeds through them. I get to know them. I try to figure out what their fire in the belly is. I try to ignite it by inspiring them by what's in my fire in my belly. But they're part of that getting to know them. I have folks that are immigrants on my team that I feed off of, listening to the story of, their mother and their father coming to America with some of them with clothes on their back, being a channel for the rest of their family to come to America, and then amassing enough wealth to go build a home back home and support a school and to sponsor people to come to America to do the same thing. I'm so passionate about that. And I think in my sector, it's not talked about enough. I think we know, but do we really know? And then when you go back to people's home country, the work that they're doing on their own without charities. I mean, I've seen people build houses and hospitals and schools on their wealth alone, not in partnership with any charity. I think that's so powerful when you think of, for me, in collaboration, partnership, and building something together. Diaspora philanthropy is that fire. And the more stories and the more connection, I'm like, oh, there's so much more we can do in this part of the world, not just in the US, this part of the world.
Crashonda Andrew, SVP of Global Philanthropy at United Way Worldwide.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Craig.
This was fun.
This was fun. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.